Hello and welcome. My name is Andy Crook, and I'm your host for this training topic, all about lean thinking in the workshop, when better helps and when better hurts. Every garage owner wants to run lean, but nobody wants to feel thin. So my mission is to help garage owners become more successful in business. And how I do that is most weeks I go live on a training topic on one of the 5 pillars of business as I see it. This week we're in the performance pillar, and today we're talking about Lean and Six Sigma. 2 buzzwords that sound great in a manufacturing environment. Can they be applied in independent workshops? Because I'm sure you've heard it all before. Eliminate waste, reduce variation, streamline flow, and it all sounds brilliant. But what happens when your work isn't repetitive assembly? When you fix different cars with different faults for different customers every day? And that's when lean can go from being a supercharger to a choke point. And in this training topic, we'll cover what is Lean and Six Sigma in plain English, why they can transform an independent garage, and when they work or when they fire, and how to fix it. So we'll discuss 3 positive examples with garages that got it right, and we'll look at 3 negative ones where lean thinking went a bit sideways. And at the end, I'll reveal the truth about efficiency in independent garages. So lean started with Toyota in Japan. It was a system built around flow, respect for people, and continuous improvement. Kaizen. It's about cutting waste. Wasted time, wasted movement, wasted stock, reworks, and confusion. And then Six Sigma came along a bit later on from Motorola and GE. And Six Sigma is more about reducing variation, getting closer to perfect every time through measurement and data. Together, Lean and Six Sigma became Lean Six Sigma, a toolkit for efficient, predictable processes. But here's the catch. Toyota built cars, millions and millions of the same model. Lean doctrine says, make everything the same. Your reality is, no 2 jobs are ever the same. You're only ever one stud away from disaster. So how do we take the principles and not the jargon and make them work for us? This is the do better part of the Atomic Success MBA. The do more, do it better before doing anything additional. So let's start with the upside, because when lean works, it appears almost magical. So let's look at 3 examples. So the first one was a typical 3-bay independent workshop. And the problem they had was technicians constantly waiting for ramp time. What they found, they would have cars stuck on the ramp, half finished, and customers continuously chasing for updates. And what was their lean thinking, and how did they go around fixing this problem? Well, what they started doing was they mapped their process from the point of booking all the way to handing the keys back. And what they noticed by doing this process and investigating how work flowed through their workshop from the point of the phone ringing to handing the keys back was the main waste wasn't in the workshop. It was waiting for approvals and parts. So what they did was they used a simple workflow on a whiteboard. And whenever a vehicle was placed on the workflow, if it had a red magnet attached to it, they were waiting for the customer. A yellow one meant it was waiting for parts, and a green one meant it was ready to go. All they did was they added a simple rule. No car goes on a ramp unless the parts are on site and the work has been approved. It's obviously not going to work every time, but if you try and stick to this rule, what they found was this one rule increased throughput through their workshop by at least 20%. It also led to better planning and improved communication with the customers. Lean here wasn't about being faster. It was about being smoother. What they did was they found out what was constraining them, and they improved the flow through the workshop. So the second one we're going to look at, and this was a specialist BMW workshop. And what they noticed, their biggest problem was that everything they did took a different amount of time, depending on which tech did it. So they broke it down into different things, and they looked at a basic service. And what they wanted to do, their lean fix for this, was they wanted to introduce best known methods, not rigid checklist, more like shared shortcuts. So what they decided to do was they filmed the senior technicians doing services, and then they shared the best practices, and then everyone adopted the same process. The result? Well, average service time dropped by 15 minutes. But not just that. The variance between different technicians also dropped, and they improved defect detection rates with fewer and fewer comebacks. The technicians still had freedom, but they shared it within a standard. And that's lean done right, consistency without forced conformity. And the third one we're going to discuss was a sort of a business that will be familiar to most of you, and that is an MOT and service center. And the owner felt like the workshop was really busy, but he also thought it was broke. So he tried a Six Sigma approach, and he wanted to measure variation in the processes and the outputs. So he began to time MOTs, he counted parts returns and tracked comebacks. And he was looking for things to measure in his business to try and find out why he felt it was broken. But the problem he found wasn't any of the things that he measured initially. It turns out most of the delays were due to waiting for customer authorizations. And they applied the DMAC model. And DMAC stands for Define, Measure, Analyze, Improve, Control. So the first thing they did was they defined the problem, which was customer frustration and lost time. And they measured how much time they were losing per job. And they worked out somewhere in the region of 0.8 hours on average, every job was delayed. And therefore, then they moved into the analyze phase, and they realized that 70% of the delays were caused by chasing for authorizations. And to improve it, they introduced a pre-authorization limit and digital approvals. What does that mean? Well, basically, when a car was presented for work, such as an MOT, they asked the customer, would they like to pre-authorize work to a certain point? And what they did, when they started measuring what was wrong, not just measuring everything, and they pinned this down, they realized there was a sort of an average amount of a failed MOT that could be authorized. It wasn't a great deal of money. It was less than 50 quid. And by having that pre-authorized at the time of booking, it meant they didn't have to phone the customer, which meant they could just get on with the work. And then they moved over to digital approvals. By that, all we simply mean is they were either texting or emailing the customer rather than ringing. And until the customer authorized the work, they didn't do anything, but they also didn't block up a route. So the outcome, well, throughput went from 10 vehicles per day on average to 13 vehicles per day with no extra staff. That's a 30% productivity gain from process, not pressure. Lean isn't about working harder. It's about removing what's slowing you down. So let's get real, because none of this is magic, but it can go horribly wrong. And here are some examples of garages that try to implement Lean or Six Sigma and what went wrong and how we worked out to fix it. So the first one is a general repair shop. They had 4 bays and they'd tried 5S Fridays. And the problem was the owner had attended a Lean course and really got fired up about the idea of reducing waste in his workshop. And they spent a complete Friday afternoon labeling drawers, painting outlines on tools, and taking before and after photographs for Facebook. They looked fantastic. But 2 weeks later, it was all back to chaos. So what went wrong? Well, they treated Lean as a tidy up, not a habit. The 5 S's, by the way, stand for sort, set in order, shine, standardize, and sustain. And it only works when it's a daily discipline, not a decoration. And the fix? Well, we went back and revisited this, and we said, well, why don't we start small? Instead of trying to do the whole workshop, let's just make the 5 S's part of the morning checklist. 3 minutes, not all day. And measure it weekly. And that's the difference between theatre and transformation. Continuous improvement and not quantum leaps. It's about changing the culture in the business, not having a big showy promotion. So the next one was a business that, once again, looked at Lean and Six Sigma, and they were trying to work out what was going wrong in their business. and they tried to optimize the wrong thing. So this is a three-bay, one-make specialist. And they didn't know what their biggest constraint was. And that was the problem. So what went wrong? Well, they tried to reduce costs and improve efficiency. The owner had read about Six Sigma and tried to measure everything in his business. Downtime, bay use, part margin, vehicle health inspection duration, coffee breaks, you name it. He had a spreadsheet for it, and they all looked amazing. But the staff felt like lab rats. The fix was to identify the lowest level need and fix that. They had a cash flow problem, the lowest level need of any business. And what they needed to fix was more cars, not their business. So every open job, if you think about it, is an unpaid invoice. Fewer cars in progress is what they needed, and to finish them faster. Paying more for parts, in this case, what they decided to do, because they were a specialist, they started to use the manufacturers, the OEM parts provider, ordering by chassis number, which basically meant they got fewer wrong parts, which increased throughput, resulting in more jobs completed on time. You can always reduce costs, but only by so much. You can always increase efficiency, but only to a point. But you can always nearly find ways to do more. So the secret here was to maximize before you optimize. The third and final one was a fast fit operation. And this is when data becomes the dictator. And the problem was the owner applied lean to cut idle time. And what went wrong? Well, they measured labor utilization per tech. I suppose at some point we've all thought about doing this, and maybe we haven't gone about it the right way. And what he decided was every minute had to be accounted for. So basically the techs were logging it on and off all day on an app. So the techs stopped helping each other. They all stayed on their own jobs, afraid of collaborating due to the draconian data. Throughput dropped and morale tanked. Lean turned into lean on each other less. They fixed it by changing the metric from individual utilization to team throughput. Suddenly, everyone was pulling together again. And the lesson here? Lean without context punishes teamwork. That's when Six Sigma can turn toxic. When you chase precision over people. And the cure was simply to remember the human side. Measure the system, not the person. So why did garages struggle and get it wrong with Lean and Six Sigma? In an independent garage, you operate in chaos almost by design. You don't get a prediction, you get a phone call. And no two jobs are ever the same. And let's face it, we're only ever one broken bolt from disaster. You don't know the part's wrong until it arrives, or that seal's gone until you do the strip down. That makes implementing traditional Lean tricky, because Lean loves predictable flow. But the idea of Lean, problem solving and continuous improvement, well, that's universal. What kills Lean isn't the method, it's the mindset. Copying Toyota instead of thinking like Toyota. Pushing people to go faster instead of removing what slows them down. Treating improvement as a project instead of a culture. Put simply, Lean fails when it's done to people, not with them. More often than not, you don't need a black belt. What you need is a whiteboard. Lean and Six Sigma are just frameworks for optimizing your business. Lean thinking fits perfectly with the Atomic Success MBA, which is do more, do it better, before doing anything additional. The danger comes when garages prioritize optimizing when they should be maximizing. So, what's the atomic takeaway for this week? Lean works when it makes your life easier, not harder. Six Sigma works when it helps you understand variation, not to fear it or try to eliminate it. So don't copy Toyota, copy their curiosity. Ask yourself this: do I need to maximize or optimize? If you could do more, then focus on that first. If you're constrained, then ask yourself, what is the one thing slowing us down? And how do I fix it? Then fix it, then rinse and repeat. Your goal isn't to become Lean certified. Your goal is to become consistently better. And here's the truth about optimization in an independent garage. Efficiency has limits, whereas maximizing doesn't. You can only tighten processes so far before you hit the law of diminishing returns. Another checklist, another minute saved, another report to chase, another penny pinched. But attracting and retaining more of the right customers, that's almost infinite. Each new relationship adds revenue, referrals, and resilience to your business. The secret sauce isn't choosing between more or better. It's combining both. Use lean thinking to free up time, then reinvest that time into doing more jobs, more marketing, and winning more of the right customers. The garage that's doing more better, the garage that's maximize and optimize, doesn't just survive, it thrives. So if you've enjoyed this episode, please share it with another garage owner who's stuck in the chaos. Remember, what's stopping you is probably starting, and if you should, you must. So until next time, keep doing more, keep doing it better. Thanks for listening.